I'm Fabiana Claure, pianist and business coach for musicians. My presentation today is going to be about women as musician entrepreneurs and how embracing a brand umbrella approach to a business development can be incredibly profitable and empowering. During the 18th and 19th centuries and in the early 20th century, the role of women in music was encouraged from the sense of learning and developing musical skills, but being in the public eye was something that was not encouraged. It was not actually really embraced by society, and it was a subject of controversy. And in my studies and my research of the role of women in music, and especially musician entrepreneurs in the 18th and 19th century, I found a lot of conflicting information regarding what was expected of women in their development of music and being able to hone their craft, but not necessarily using that in the public eye and getting on stage. I studied the life of Fanny Mendelssohn, for example, who was Felix Mendelssohn's sister, and she was a prodigy child, just like her brother, yet she was not encouraged to pursue music as a career. She was encouraged to pursue music only to develop her craft inside the confines of her home, and her father actually always discouraged her from pursuing this professionally, telling her that it needed to be an ornament. I'm gonna make sure my timer stays here. So this was an example of how in the 19th century women were pretty much discouraged for pursuing music as a career, even though we had incredible role models like Clara Schumann, who was Robert Schumann's wife, who actually not only became an incredibly prolific and internationally renowned concert pianist, but she actually became the main breadwinner for her family, her household, when her husband became mad and had all these health issues. She ended up becoming a widow at the age of 37 with 7 children. So she really had to learn early on, since she was a child, to develop her musicianship for a means to survival, not only for her artistic and craft development. So these were examples of women who were able to create incredibly prolific careers, but each with their different limitations. Clara Schumann was able to create a public persona, versus Fanny was not. And they each ended up going on and developing their own entrepreneurial sides of their careers in their own way, under their own limitations. But when Clara Schumann, for example, was appointed to be a faculty at the Frankfurt Conservatory, the director of the conservatory said that they were never going to employ women in the conservatory. And as for Clara Schumann, that they considered her to be a man. So these were the types of narratives that women in the 19th century in Europe and in the US and in different parts of the world were exposed to. This was the societal norm. And now when we look at the way women's role in society has evolved, and even though in many cases it took a long time for this to happen, for example, the role of women in orchestras, the Berlin Philharmonic didn't employ their first women until 1982, believe it or not, and the Vienna Philharmonic didn't have a woman on the official roster until 1997. So these things took a long time to morph into the society we live in today, and yet there are good things and bad things about what we have in our society in terms of expectations of women today. The good thing is that women now have a much more broader opportunity to fulfill their lives as musicians, as professionals, to go for their dreams. There are women who are, in high-ranking positions in the music industry. The CEO of the New York Philharmonic is a woman. The CEO of the Dallas Symphony is a woman. So things have come a long way since then, but there are still a lot of sequels, especially as it regards to conditioning of the mind, of the role of women in society, and a legacy of a patriarchal kind of predisposition. And so what I want to talk about today is how, as women musicians and musician educators, how can we embrace the strategies that can allow us to continuing this amazing legacy of successful women musicians who are leaders, who are taking charge of their lives, and who are going on and embracing change and adapting to the challenging environments. So a key part of this process is what I call my Musician's Profit Umbrella. It's a system that allows you to unite all the different elements of your personality, of your professional skill set, and approach your career not on a single side or on multiple different angles, but uniting them all. So for example, in my case, I'm a pianist by trade, and then when I became an entrepreneur when I founded my music school almost 10 years ago, Superior Academy of Music. And after 5 years of running my school, I accepted a position to teach music business and entrepreneurship at the University of North Texas. And so I morphed yet into a new role where I was able to apply my experience both as a musician as well as an entrepreneur and create this program at the University of North Texas, which ended up in the past 5 years being recognized by Billboard magazine as one of the top 50 music business schools for 4 years in a row. So what allowed me to do all these major career milestones has been precisely my ability to embrace the different sides of my professional identity and incorporate my personal interests as well. So most recently, during this past year, the year 2020, I also evolved not only what I was doing from my university position, but I created a coaching program for women musicians to help them develop new income streams, expand their impact, become more accessible, and using the internet, the online space to create teaching and coaching programs that would allow them to have massive impact while also increasing their profitability and revenue streams. So in my case, this experience has allowed me once again to unite what I've been doing as an educator at higher ed, as a musician, as a pianist, and as an entrepreneur running my school, which now is done remotely. My husband took over the administration and we were able to delegate the school and leave it in Florida. And now he runs it mainly remotely here from Texas. All while having 2 kids, a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so in my experience, it's been the ability to put together the different interests that I have and to not see myself as only one side as a pianist or one side as a university professor or one side as an entrepreneur or one side as a mother, as a woman, but really to create businesses that allow me to integrate all those different aspects of my personal and professional identity. So my research project, which is what I was originally planning on sharing in this presentation, but because it ended up having to be online, there were some copyright issues that I couldn't really do it in this video format because it involves multimedia and film, so that'll have to be for another time. But from that research, what I ended up creating was a program where I combined my interest in women's studies, my interest in entrepreneurship, and I developed this multimedia lecture recital studying the works of 19th century women musicians who were able to create businesses in that time against all the odds and become very prolific and successful in their careers. And so that also fueled my idea to create this coaching business that I now work with women musicians who are also trying to develop additional income streams, whether they teach at universities or whether they have studios or perhaps solo careers. So it's just a great example of, in my personal story, how I've been able to utilize this approach to not only integrate the different aspects of my professional identity, but also help others do the same. So in this coaching program that I've helped women do the same thing, unify the different aspects of their personal and professional interests, and create coaching programs, teaching programs, even though they have full-time jobs, university positions, or the studio, they're owners of studios or academies. And they've actually been able to go on and create their own income, new revenue streams by creating packages that allow them to reach people all over the world and have, for the first time, selling in multiple 4-figure packages, even if it's their very first time. So what has been one of the secret components of this kind of strategy? Not only the brand umbrella kind of uniting all the different elements of your identity approach, but also being willing to do the deeper inner work that is required when you're creating some sort of a transformational business. This brings me back to my opening thoughts about the sequels from, so many centuries of patriarchal conditioning and, in a way, having women be defined, what their role needs to be, having women have their worth also be defined. And now, one of the key things that I'm finding in my work both as a coach as well as in my work as a university professor, is that in order for women to create businesses, they have to overcome their doubts of their sense of worthiness, their doubt of their sense of value. One of the key aspects that I encourage my clients to do when they create new businesses is to find a way to not create models that depend on hourly exchange against time, against money. So in other words, to not have to sell their services based on an hourly rate, but instead to create packages that are value-based, where they can put together a 3 to 6 month transformational experience for a set price based on their financial needs, their financial goals, and then be able to communicate that value to their prospective clients and find ways where they can not only express what the price point is, but be able to effectively communicate why this is set up the way it is. But that takes internal courage, and it takes a deep understanding of what it is that you actually bring to the table, so that the financial exchange does not seem lump-sided. In other words, so that they are comfortable pricing themselves accordingly, creating packages that are actually going to not limit their time, where if they have to teach, for example, studio teachers, and this is something that is part of the latest trends that have emerged in the last year regarding, teaching models. So for example, instead of having teaching models where you teach 1 hour a week and, eventually spend 4 hours a month with a student, you can group students, put them in together in different, pods, and have maybe 2 hours a week or 2.5 hours a week of group instruction, offering different types of values. And then you can have off lesson support through like a Facebook community or an online platform where they can continuously have more support from you as a teacher. And then you can still have one-on-one interactions, but they don't have to be every week. So instead of the teacher filling out their studio and having, 20 or 30 one-on-one students per week, they can have 20 or 30 group students, and they each have maybe once a month a private one-on-one lesson, but the rest is through this community group interaction type of experience. And the students end up having, like I did the math, almost like 14 hours of support a month versus 4 hours of support, right? If you add out the group interactions plus the one-on-ones. So from a value standpoint, the ability to connect with others, to have that interactive experience, to have offline support where they can connect much more frequently with their teacher, not just once a week and then not have any contact until the following week, it could create a very, very innovative way of learning music, and at the same time, highly, highly optimize the schedule for the teacher, where they don't have to be spending 20, 30 hours with each student every week, and instead can condense that into 5 or 6. So, and of course, that also allows the business model to be scalable and to work with more students and to obviously, earn 10 times more. So, a lot of the types of examples of models that I'm looking into and that I share with my students and with my clients are all about leveraging the online space. So that's also a key component of my Musician's Profit Umbrella framework, which is not only to understand how to find the inner confidence, go through that mindset journey of erasing limiting beliefs, questioning any assumptions, especially as they relate to your sense of worth, to your sense of value, right? As a woman, how do you overcome all of those, work through those doubts, and then put yourself in the market through different strategies of visibility? A lot of that involves content creation. A lot of that involves being able to connect with others, engage in conversations, and essentially become visible from a place of service, from a place of humility, from a place of true mission, right? These are the key things that have allowed me and the people that I support to really become very genuine in their voice, to not only go through this internal transformation and say, I can do this, I have value, my skill sets are not limited to either teaching or performing, but I have all of this additional part of my life, my historic background, my, wherever I'm from, anything that can, particular hobbies, even quirky facts that maybe, engaging and entertaining, really embracing the whole self, the whole person, not just the professional side, and stepping into a place of visibility, a place of confidence, and just putting yourself out there through a variety of techniques and things that we follow in the program. But ideally, the whole point is that if you become confident in your own skin, and this is something that as educators, I am very passionate of sharing these techniques, sharing these strategies. And so this is why I'm so excited to be able to kind of be in this conference and share this experience with all of you, because I know you'll be able to go on and share this with your students and the people in your community that you serve. So in a nutshell, these are techniques that obviously are not only restricted to women musicians. These are techniques that can apply to, musicians of any genre, gender, or gender identification. But in my case, because of my story and my personal experiences, I obviously gravitate more towards the female side of this and how it has impacted my perspective and my journey, and how it works, in the clients that I support. But essentially, it's about understanding that any conditioning beliefs, any baggage that you may feel regarding your sense of worth, regarding what you are allowed to do. This is something that actually comes up a lot in my program, because a lot of my clients are very, all of them are highly accomplished professionals. They've been seen under a specific angle, a specific light for most of their life, doing a specific thing. And so when it comes to developing new income streams, becoming a coach or re-engineering the way you teach, there's always some hesitation of like, is it okay for me to step into this new way of being? Is it okay for me to claim an authority in this new way of working? And there's always this sense of doubt, right? So being able to question that, to acknowledge that, and to then step into a new place of belief, of empowerment, and look at your career from a brand umbrella perspective. Like, what are the parts of your life that can help others? Like, what are those obstacles that you have had to overcome in your story? How have you helped others overcome their obstacles? And so really taking that deep analysis of what it is that you can offer in order to create your service, your product, your coaching program, whatever it is you're going to do, and not only limiting it to whatever you think you are good at, but really embracing all the parts of your personal and professional identity. And then finally, it's the idea of leveraging the online space. Especially in these last few months, we have realized how our industry has completely been turned around, and many of the flaws of the traditional music industry models have been exposed. In my opinion, they haven't been broken because of the pandemic. They haven't been caused because of the pandemic. I think they've actually almost been exposed. The fragile nature of the models that exist, especially as it relates to exchanging time for money, all of that has been exposed now with the changes we've had in the pandemic. So now is the time for us as musicians, as entrepreneurs, as educators, as coaches, to really embrace the new models that are now out there. Look at examples of musicians who are able to condense their teaching situations, and instead of exchanging 20 hours a week to work with students, they're able to condense those into 4 or 5 and still work with 20 students and actually charge higher prices, because the value can be significantly increased because of more support, many ways to support students. So it's really about questioning, what is it that we thought we knew about the music industry, and what is needed now? How can we embrace the online space as educators and teach our students and our clients to do the same? And how can we move forward with a sense of empowerment and a sense of possibility, that even though we've all had to deal with a lot of challenges and we continue to do so, that there's hope for a brand new industry in our field, and that the music industry will now in many ways be more resilient and be more prepared for future crises or things that could happen. So I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to connecting with all of you. I'm trying to make sure I'm good on time. I think I'm on time. I look forward to connecting with all of you during the live Q&As. If you want to learn more about my website and my everything that I'm doing, feel free to go to fabianaclaure.com and send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. and I look forward to connecting with you in October. Thank you.